This is Women in Music with Gfire Podcast, episode number 35 with singer-songwriter Kristen Merritt. Kristen Merritt, hi there.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming on. That's what I do, and that's what you do as well, right?
Yes.
Well, where are you right now?
So currently I am in Brooklyn, New York. I'm in my teeny tiny baby bedroom, but I work from home here, so I'm in Brooklyn.
Okay, so you've got a day job of doing something?
Yes, yeah. So I do data entry and management for a journalism nonprofit.
Well, data entry doesn't sound that fun, but nonprofit and journalism sounds pretty cool.
And you know what? I actually really like data entry. I'm coming from a background in the sciences with college. And so there's a lot of research that we did for the particular program that I was in. I was a geology major. So I don't know what it is. I think just the way that data entry, while it can be kind of routine, it allows you to like pop on a podcast in the background or listen to some music. And so it just puts me in a good space.
That sounds kind of good. That's a good day job for a musician. So
I would say so, yeah.
Well, how long have you been in the New York metropolitan area?
Yeah, so I've been in New York since the end of 2019, September of 2019, so almost 2 full years now. Oh, wait, no. Yeah, it'll be coming up. Yeah, just in a couple of days. That'll be 2 full years.
And you're originally from?
So originally from Detroit, Michigan, but I like to say that I'm also in part from, I guess, like the Williamsburg, Newport News area of Virginia, just because that has been the second longest place that I've lived. Moved a couple of times.
Okay, now that's good. And are you finding your music career is doing better by being in New York?
I would say so. It looks different than how it did in Williamsburg, just because when I was in Williamsburg, I was going to school there. And so I think being a student musician, there's a lot of opportunities definitely for music, whether on campus or in the community. You know, people get excited about you because you're from William and Mary and you're like student musician. William and Mary was the college that I went to.
I think the oldest college in the States, isn't that right?
So we almost were the fully oldest. We were established first, but Harvard got chartered first. So they're the first oldest. We're the second. Well, like a very close second.
Very close. So,
yes.
Yeah, so you were down there doing student shows, but then once you graduated...
Yeah, once I graduated, I stayed in Williamsburg, actually working at my admissions office, the admissions office of the college that I went to, for an additional about 1.5 years, 2 years. And I was fortunate enough that even though the majority of my band members were in the same year as me, so we all graduated, there was one band member who was actually the year below us. Okay. And so we were able to kind of start things back up as a smaller band. There were 5 of us originally, and then the 2 of us got to play around Williamsburg. And so that was going on well for a while. And we added a drummer who was also in the same year as bassist, the one who stuck around after, not yet having graduated. And 3 of us played a little bit and then they graduated. And then for that second year, I made friends with, I guess, the friend of the drummer who had joined us, who's also another bassist. And so that allowed me to continue playing in a way that I wouldn't have otherwise, because I picked up the guitar about 4 years ago, but I hadn't solidly gotten to the point where I could play like solo on guitar comfortably until basically I got to New York.
Okay, and then did somebody move from Williamsburg with you to New York?
No, it was just me.
Just you. Okay, so
yeah.
Did you get a job before you got there?
I did not, no. Okay. So I got it in my mind towards like December of 2018 that I really wanted to move to New York, and maybe not as quickly as possible, but probably within the next year. And so I did as much research as I could beforehand. I went and visited the city in January of 2019, just to kind of get a feel for it. Came with a friend of mine that actually at the time we were planning on living together, but I was the one who ended up making it up, and then she stayed in Virginia. But we like scoped out the city, the different neighborhoods, check out what we might like, where we want to live. And then when it came closer to that like September date, I got everything in line with the job that I was at the time to say, hey, I'm going to be peacing out soon. Thank you so much. This has been wonderful, because I really did love that job.
Yeah.
But getting everything together, got on Gypsy Housing on Facebook to kind of do a preliminary search of like, can I live with you? But when it came down to, I guess that like early September, while I had my plans settled and situated and I had somewhere to stay for a week while I was there, I had a friend to stay with for a week. I did not have a job and I did not have permanent housing yet, but I figured, it's a calculated risk, right? I could always, if it came down to it, I could turn home and head back to Virginia if I needed to. Fortunately, I know that's not something that everyone has the option to do. But having that in the back of my mind, I was like, well, I gotta go for it if this is what I want, and I'll figure it out like as each day progresses. So got up here, got situated with the friend that I was staying with for the first week. And since I had been talking to people on Gypsy Housing, I was able to see a couple apartments like the second day that I got here. And then that turned into where I'm actually living now.
Wow. And do you have roommates?
I have one roommate, yes.
One roommate. Okay, cool. And I imagine the rent is a little higher than in Williamsburg, right?
It's a little higher. So in Williamsburg, I guess I don't know if I can get into like specific facts and figures.
I'm curious how much it costs to live in Brooklyn right now.
So
what are we looking at?
Yeah, so like I said, I have a smaller room, but it serves me very well. It's $750 with utilities a month.
$750?
So, yeah, I know. So it's not as bad as you would think.
That's cheaper than I would have ever thought.
Yeah. So when I was living in Williamsburg, Virginia, and this is where the contrast comes in, right? Because when I was living in Williamsburg, Virginia, I was paying $500 a month with utilities for what would be the equivalent of a master size bedroom in New York. Right. And it was like a townhome. So it was like a 2-story home with 1.5 bathrooms, only had one other roommate, like large kitchen and everything, washer, dryer, and dishwasher. Now that I'm thinking about it. So a lot of amenities for $500. Whereas here, again, very fortunate because I do really like where I'm living. I like the neighborhood, and then don't have some of those other amenities, but we have like a lot of great windows, good light. And then with having just one other roommate, I thought it was a good price.
It sounds terrific. Good for you. And then how long did it take to find the job?
So the job, second week that I was here, I was staying in an Airbnb. And this is when I went a little bit harder on the job search, given that housing was taken care of. And initially I applied for maybe like 4 or 5 jobs and got an interview with one position that it was like an educational data type job, but it was like a larger role within their company. So there ended up being 4 rounds of interviews for it.
Okay.
And by like the 3rd round, I was like, so this is a very serious position. And I know what I came up here for. I came up here for music. Right. And, in talking with the members of the staff who were interviewing me, they all seemed phenomenal, but there was always like a question of the work-life balance. Like that was a question I kept asking, and it wasn't like they avoided it, but there was not a concrete answer that was going to be able to be given. And so by the 3rd round, I was like, I'm going to take myself out of contention just because I feel like this would sidetrack me. This is like a career move for someone versus, me wanting more of a day job and then transitioning full-time into music over time. So yeah, it took me a little, that was definitely like a growing moment because I'm someone who likes stability, and I had to learn very quickly. Yeah, it's not necessarily what you're going to get all the time with music, but it's important to have that value of music, front and center, kind of staying there so that you don't get sidetracked and end up doing a career that you might not want to.
You are very, very focused. I mean, this is awesome. Really, you're like, I'm going to New York. Yeah. I found my place to stay. I didn't take the wrong job.
Right.
And you're probably not in some sort of weird unfulfilling relationship or
No, I cannot say.
mm-hmm.
I've through over the past couple of years, I've come into contact with a lot of different things that have helped me, I think, keep and maintain that focused mindset. Because I think in the beginning, it was the excitement and the newness of being in the new place that really motivated me to keep focused with music. And I was going to like 3 or 4 open mics a week and doing all of this stuff that kept music in the forefront. And then the pandemic hit. So of course that became a little bit of a difficult span of time. And the focus then it shifted from all the in-person stuff and performances to then, getting better at guitar and working on the album and doing all of this stuff. And I think as well, over this duration of the pandemic, I actually started meditating. So meditation as a practice has helped me immensely like shift my mindset from, I guess what they say, like from, from like deficit to abundance. And so while again, the beginning stages of me getting here might've just been motivated by like sheer, like, I just got to do it. I got to get here, adrenaline. Now I think I've gotten to a place where I have like a more sustainable focus, just because of meditation and the practice of doing that.
These are all good things to take up. This is great. So let's talk a little about the album. I think normally these episodes come out 2 or 3 months after I interview you, so I think it's coming out this month.
Oh, wonderful.
Your album.
Oh, the album is. Sorry, I thought you meant the show.
Well, your album is being released on which date?
Yeah, so it was actually released this past Tuesday.
Okay,
September 14th.
It.
Yeah,
the 14th of September, and this will probably come out 3 months later. But still, and tell me a little bit about the album and your recording process, and if you had to do a Kickstarter or anything like that.
Yes, yeah. So I actually did do a Kickstarter, and I can get back to that. I can kind of narrate it on a timeline.
Circle back around, but talk a little bit about the music now. We haven't really talked about your original music.
Yes, the creative process. So the album as a concept didn't start forming until I would say maybe May of 2020. I started off beginning of 2020 feeling like I wanted to release a song every single month. And so I was on track to do that by March. And then the pandemic hit. And I honestly used a little bit as an excuse to not continue that process. I think at the time while I was on track, I also felt kind of like, I wasn't, while the creative output was happening and I was feeling good about that, I just wasn't enjoying it as much as I thought I would. I thought I would like the challenge a lot more. And I didn't find it to be, just as positively challenging as I wanted it to be. And so, fast forward to May, I actually was thinking like, well, instead of doing a release a month, let me go ahead and release an EP. So I had 3 songs pulled together for an EP, and I was working with these songs, recording them. And again, it just, something didn't feel quite right. I felt like I was just rushing to create something rather than experiencing like, the act of creation and enjoying that process. And so I took a pause, step back. And one night I was on Instagram, and a friend of mine, the friend that I was actually in the band with in college after everyone had graduated. So he was in like the second stage of the band. He plays drums. He's actually a multi-instrumentalist. But in this Instagram video, he was playing drums, guitar, and bass. And I was just like what he was playing. I was like, oh my God, that's so good. And I wrote something. I wrote a full song, the song I'm Done, in 10 minutes. And I was like, right. Like we were just like, okay, yes, come to me, speak through me, whoever this is, the story. And I showed it to him. Like I recorded myself over what he had played, and he loved it. And so I
Nice.
was like, okay, so this is the first time in months that I've been so excited about a song, and it wasn't, my initial thought was not like, okay, and now I got to release it. It was more of just like, well, I just want to see where this goes. Like, I want to see if he's interested in playing more on this. And so we started pulling that song together.
Mm-hmm.
And while that was happening, another song was formed in the background. And this one was Breathe. And I guess, came from a place of where all of this good work was happening, but I was still having some issues with my self-esteem. And I was like, well, how can all of this good be happening? And I'm taking stock of this good, but I still feel so icky sometimes. And so I guess Breathe as a song was inspired by that feeling of just like, I'm so tired of like being myself sometimes, in the sense that it's like you have all of this to be thankful for, like, what's your problem? What's your issue? Why aren't you? And realizing over the course of writing that song that it's not necessarily like, I think it's a very human thing to pay attention to what you don't have
Mm-hmm.
and what you want. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching this YouTube video by this artist, Anna Akana, I believe. And she made a really great video and a really great point in one of the videos that if you make happiness a benchmark, you'll never feel fulfilled or satisfied. And this kind of came to mind in the writing of Breathe, where it's like, you do really need to take a step back and enjoy the process of what you're doing, especially with something like music, where you could put it out and 1 million people could listen to it, or like 10 people could listen to it. Like, at the end of the day, you need to step back and feel good about what you've created, even if it doesn't have like a massive reach. And so, yeah, in creating Breathe, I sent the track along to this friend of mine, as well as another friend. Again, this is also great how, like, in staying connected with people and collaborating, you can create great music, because in the second and third iterations of the band, so went from 5 members to 3 members, the drummer in that group. And then in the last iteration, which was just me and a bassist, this bassist friend, I connected with him and I was like, hey, I have these tracks. Do you want to just like lay something down and we could just see what it sounds like? And so he did. And I remember when I first got the track back for Breathe, and I had worked on doing some time fixing for like the drum part and getting that all together, I just like burst into tears hearing this, because I was like, it was just at this point, vocals, guitar, drums, and one of the bass parts, because I ended up doing some layering of the bass. But I was just like, this song feels like me. Like, it was one of the first times where I was like, I am proud of what has been created. I want to dance to this. Like, I had been searching, I think, up until this point, to a degree. Again, I liked the music that I had created before, and I appreciated everyone who collaborated with me on all the music I had created before. But it always just felt like I was kind of missing something. Like, I could be like, I'm proud of this, but I just wish there was a little bit of that, like, je ne sais quoi, like that something else. And I found it in Breathe, and I was like, this is amazing. Like, I already wanted to be a musician, like, but this is really like, this is it. And so it kept working like that with the rest of the songs. There's 8 tracks total. And so I'm Done and Breathe were the first ones that got together. And then I just, between songs I had written in the past and never done anything with, and like new songs that were coming up, I did the same process of like sending it to this person, sending it to this person, and then pulling everything together and then doing the work of producing it, producing the sound. And that's how the album came to fruition. So by December of 2020, I had done all of the sourcing of the tracks, getting everyone together with their different parts, and then doing like the time quantization, which is, just making sure everything was in time. And I started doing more of the heavier like production and then mixing and mastering at the beginning of this year, to have basically finished around March of this year. And while doing that, running in the background was also a Kickstarter that I started.
Okay, now we're doing the circle back around. Okay.
Yeah. So the Kickstarter, I had attended a music seminar in January of this year of 2021. And the biggest thing with me as a musician was that I've never really had too much trouble with the music aspect of things.
Right.
But I came to learn, especially when moving to New York, that there is a business side of things that you have to take care of. And I struggled with that for years, just feeling like I'm not good at the business side. I don't enjoy it. It just feels like a piece that's maybe at some point, I'll get someone else I can make enough money to hire someone else to do it for me. And I was very just in the mindset of like, I just hate this and I don't really want to touch it, even though I know it's important. And the weight of that importance, I think, was very frustrating. And it just made me feel dejected at certain points because I was just like, I can't get this right. But I took this seminar in January and I'm so glad that I did.
And what was the seminar? It was online?
Yeah, it was online. It was through a group called I Heart My Voice. They're based out in California. And I had gotten into contact with them actually a couple months prior because they have programs that they set up that run for longer durations. I could not afford the longer, bigger program at the time, but this ended up only being like $60. So I was like, okay, yeah, I can afford to do that. And they hosted a 2-day seminar, 3 hours each day. And so you got a lot out of it. And in this seminar, it was the first time that it felt like I had done all of these individual things that kind of were floating in like an ether, but I could not get them to come together. And what we learned in this seminar was like the glue that binded everything together. So it was like amazing. I left it being like, no, I actually do understand what within the business I can really enjoy and what I can build on. And it's not as difficult as I thought it was. And I love spreadsheets, and they gave us spreadsheets that we could use to track different information. And I was like, okay, so this is the type of stuff that I have to lean into with the business. Like this stuff that reminds me of stuff that I have done in previous sectors that I may have even been good at. And so getting all that together, one of the things that they recommended was building your email list. Putting great importance on building your email list, getting people to your website. And the idea of building it was through, I guess they call it like a VIP freebie, where basically you offer something to people who will join your email list as like a thank you for joining. And so my VIP freebie was holding a Zoom concert in I think that was in March of this year, for free. So it was like, basically like, give me your email and then you get to attend this free Zoom concert. And then I also did a lot more, I guess you could say kind of more like on the ground, on the social media ground canvassing of where I finally took the advice that I've been hearing from a lot of different places of like, sometimes you just got to reach out to people, like people that you don't know, but you go to artists that are similar to you, like through hashtags and everything, and you see who's following them. And then you just chat with their fans, their followers, so that, you can get to know them a little bit more and pull people as well to where you are. And so I was each day just like contacting like 5 or 6 people, just saying like, hey, I have this free Zoom like, here's me. This is the music that I make. I saw, that you're interested in this person, having like trying to have an authentic conversation with someone, but also saying, oh, and by the way, I have this concert that I'm doing. And, you feel free to sign up for it. And so through that, like I grew my email list, like almost doubled it just within like a month.
Did you chat with them on Instagram mostly?
Yeah. Just Instagram through direct messages. Yep. Yeah.
Just DM and then just say, hey, I know you follow, I don't know, one of who were you?
So I don't know if you're familiar with the artist Raven Lenae. She's neo soul artist. Jacob Collier.
Okay.
Yeah. So I found, I think I ended up having like a list of like 10 people, both a mix of like larger artists who are a little bit more established and then smaller artists who are working on, working themselves up, and then just finding their followers and talking to their followers and engaging them directly. And so for the Zoom concert, I ended up having almost 40 people show up. And I was like, that is honestly like the only time I ever see 40 people in a Zoom space is like at work, for like our like full staff meetings. Exactly.
Right.
But yeah, so it was like a mix of my family and some of these people that I messaged through Instagram and friends and I guess fans who came out. And so I did this performance, and the reason why it was very strategic, the reason why I was collecting emails, other than, just because it's important to have like that repository, is because then when I went the next month to go launch my Kickstarter campaign, I had these emails to know now that like these are the people who are actually very interested in what I'm doing, enough so that they would give me their email, that they would come to the show, that I could email them about the Kickstarter. And so with the Kickstarter, I did all this research that was like, this is how you should run it. And like, because they're an all or nothing platform,
yes, they are.
Yeah, I would recommend being mindful about like setting your target goals. And so what I set my goal at was like the bare minimum. Like,
which is like how much?
It was like I think I set the goal at $1,000.
Right. So you knew that you were going to at least get 1,000.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that would have covered paying the musicians a little bit, and then paying for the photographer, videographer who was doing, because the reason for starting the Kickstarter, since I had already done all the music production and everything myself, was now we want to get some visual elements. We want to get music videos, lyric videos, photos, and everything done. And so yeah, $1,000 would have paid the musicians a little bit and paid my photographer, videographer. And so I set it low, but I put a lot of work into it and I had a lot of fun. Again, this was like another part of the process where I was like, let me actually take some time. I had to tell myself like mentally in my mind, like have fun with it. Like enjoy everything that you're doing leading up to like the big thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Enjoying the process more than just the goal, when I get to the goal, I'm going to be happy then.
Right. Yeah. No. So we're just gonna be happy in general. We're choosing to have fun. And so, yeah, again, I put a lot of work into it. I ended up making like for everyone who's involved, whether a musician or on the creative like design team, I put their pictures up and did like a little blurb about each one of them so people could also come to the page and get to know them a little bit. And I think, I was doing all of this work. And again, self-confidence is something that I'm working on. And so in the back of my mind, there's always this little buzz of like, okay, well, what if this doesn't work though? Like you're doing all of this work. What if it doesn't work? And so through the process, it was also having to like kind of quiet that voice and be like, hey, I'm just going to do it anyway. I might have reservations.
If it works, it works. If it doesn't, you have to try something else.
Exactly. We pivot, as they say, to say. Yeah.
Pivot.
Yeah. Which I used to have so much resistance around that word, like feeling like, I don't want to pivot. I just wanted to work the way I wanted to, like the first try. But, I feel like things seldom in life happen just as you want them to the first time that you ever try them. So good life lesson as well. Just like, it's okay to pivot.
So how long did it take you to do the Kickstarter and how much money did you end up pulling in?
Yeah, so it took me a month to get the Kickstarter together. And I was very surprised that within the first day, we met the funding goal. Nice. I was expecting like a week. I was like, yeah, it's $1,000, give some time, some people to trickle in. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we hit the funding goal in the first day. And then I think the project closed out with $2,400 total. So surpassed it with the added note that like with surpassing that goal, like here are the other things that I would be able to do with the extra funds. And the biggest thing was being able to pay the musicians a larger chunk. Because again, they just volunteered their time. We're all friends. So they were like, we just want to make good music and help you out. But I was like, no, thank you. But also, I want to make sure I can compensate you. And so that allowed me to do everything that I needed to for each music video. And we ended up with 3 music videos, 1 lyric video. I did the editing on the videos, which also saved cost, but at least getting them filmed and getting the videographer paid, and then did 2 photo shoots. So I got a lot based off of what people were able to give.
So Kristen, what's the song that you brought in today that's one of your favorites from this new album?
Yes. So I think hands down, my favorite from the album is Breathe.
And describe it just a little bit and then we'll play it for our listeners.
Yeah. So Breathe is a song that I think in my songwriting process, songs can come from different spaces. And Breathe, as much as it was an exercise in me expressing myself, just because I had pent up so much frustration, about my self-esteem and things like that. It was both an exercise in expressing that very vulnerably and very rawly, as well as providing myself, I don't know, maybe a little bit of a space of just like, it's okay to feel this way, to process that those feelings of frustration. The song starts off with the line, "I'm sorry to be honest, but I'm so tired of the way I make myself feel." And when I tell you, when I wrote that line, I really meant it. I was writing that through tears, just because I had gotten to a place where I had learned different ways to help myself, but I had experienced some setbacks around the time of writing Breathe, and just felt like, why can't I get it right? Like, why can't I just maintain stability? And like, what's wrong with me? And through the course of the song, I explored the idea that, like, okay, so let's take a step back. Maybe some of the things that you're perceiving as weaknesses really are a part of this growth process that you keep telling yourself about, people keep talking to you about. Like, I feel like the idea of a process was a little bit more of like a nebulous idea previous to Breathe, in the sense that I'm like, okay, I understand that there's supposed to be a process and growing is a process, but I didn't really internalize what that meant, in terms of, yeah, there are going to be some very challenging moments and you are going to have setbacks, even when you get to a point of stability and what you think is like infinite joy and happiness. Like, life happens. And so Breathe allowed me to say that life happens, and that's not like an excuse for if I'm not doing enough to be present in my life, but it is just kind of the fact of the matter. And it's okay that life happens, and it's okay to have setbacks. And there is, I guess one of the lines is, "There's hope in the tears that I cry." I find myself crying a lot, whether it's for reasons of frustration or reasons of like absolute pure joy. And like, there's strength in that. I think for so long, I just equated so much of myself and the way that I express myself with weakness, and feeling like I'm just not doing it right. I'm just not doing life right. Like, I don't know who said there's a guidebook to life, but I read it, I guess, at some point, and I was like, I'm not getting it right. And so, yeah, Breathe, it was just a reminder to take a deep breath in and then go ahead and exhale it, because sometimes you can't fix the problem, or if the perceived problem, you feel like you can't do anything, but you can always do something. And for me, in that space, it was allowing myself to breathe, and to calm myself down through that.
Well, let's play it for our listeners.
I'm sorry to be honest, but I'm so tired of the way I make myself feel. I know it to be something that I can't seem to run away from. 'Cause feelings often come in waves that we do not expect, and often I get weary days that I wouldn't select. But I know that it's better to feel everything breathe. Oh, I guess I should just breathe in. I guess I should just breathe. Oh, breathe. Oh, breathe in. I guess I should just reach out.
Yeah, I really like that song. It's really, really catchy.
Thank
I kind
you.
of bob my head to it.
Yes, yeah.
It's sort of, I don't know if you know that artist Sade from the 80s. It's
Oh,
got
yes, yeah.
a little bit of that, a little Erica Badu, I think.
Oh, yes, yeah. She's an inspiration of mine, so thank you.
Yeah. Those are just some women that come to mind immediately. But did you sing all your own harmonies?
Yes, yeah. Did all my
Okay.
own harmonies. And then I also, for all the songs across the album, I did the sound engineering. So
And what do you use
did
for
it.
that?
Yeah, so I use Logic, is my DAW, my, what is it, digital audio workstation.
Yes, that's exactly what it does.
Yeah. And then I used for the production process, I actually used a lot of the plugins that come with Logic.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But through another plugin set through a company called Isotope, Izotope, I was able to do the mixing and mastering process because they have plugins for both of those parts of the process. So I definitely did get help for particularly the mastering process. I had been researching and diving into the mixing process and understanding sound and, the different frequencies that things are at and like what's a cut and what's a boost and all that kind of good stuff for each track. But I will say that I was like painfully unprepared for the mastering process. I thought mastering was just making something louder. No. That is not the case. So where I was able to use YouTube tutorials and like little guidebooks that I was able to find online for the mixing process, for the mastering process, I definitely leaned a little bit more heavily into the Isotope plugin, which I can't remember the name of the one for mastering, but it functionally took your track, ran it through its system that uses like AI to detect certain things, and then it spits out a master, and then you can adjust from there. So that was very helpful.
Yeah. So you basically have a blueprint, and then you just kind of tweak it.
Exactly.
Okay, very cool. And so you played guitar. Is that you playing guitar?
Yes, yeah. So that's me playing guitar. It was all right to say the names of the musicians who accompanied me on the track.
Send them a shout out.
Yes, yeah. Okay. So then on bass, it was actually, I layered 2 bass tracks and added some other bass that was just like through like MIDI. But the main bass stack is Ian Wright, bassist, who's actually based out now on the West Coast. And then the drums was Brendan Helm, who is based in Pennsylvania at this point right now. So yeah, there were some embellishments and flourishes that I added with like MIDI, with like keyboard, type stuff. But yeah, the 3 of us did this song together.
I think it's wonderful. I hope that it has all the success that it deserves.
Thank you.
Let's see now. Well, where can people find you? Where's the best place to for all things Kristen Merritt?
Yes. So if you head over to my website will link you out to all the different places you could ever wish for in terms of like my Instagram, my YouTube. If you like cover videos on YouTube last year during the pandemic particularly, I was doing a series where I was basically doing like a cover video each week, and I have what I think are these hilarious what I call blurps, like bloopers, attached to like the end of each video, what the process of creating a video like that looks like, but in like a funny type of way. And then as well, I'm on all the major streaming services, Spotify, Apple Music, SoundCloud, and Bandcamp if you don't have a subscription to one of those other ones. These are a couple different other places, but yes, definitely head over to my website, which is my first and last name, Kristen Merritt music.com.
KristenMerrittMusic.com. That will be in the show notes.
Thank you.
And so how are you, well, first of all, are you printing any hard copies, or is it all digital?
Yeah, so at this point, the run of it will be just digital. I'm hoping with maybe some additional funding hopefully the near future, but hopefully maybe getting it potentially to vinyl. I hadn't looked into CDs, but I know there's like a reemergence of vinyl these days. I love listening to vinyl records.
Sure.
So in the potential far forward future.
You'd like to put on vinyl?
Yes, yeah.
That seems reasonable. And do you have any other stories you want to recommend? Any highlights to your career? Any cautionary tales? Anything like that? Any particular stories?
Let's see. Cautionary tale.
Which do you prefer? Gosh. A favorite thing or well, cautionary tales can be kind of interesting to me.
Yeah. I'm like, unfortunately, depending on what camp you're in terms of how you end up growing, I don't have too many cautionary tales. But the first thing that came to mind functions both as like a nice memory and as a little bit of like let's pivot, with that, using that word from before, like we have to figure out how to pivot. And this was actually when I was with my band in college. We were called the Masaharu Effect. And our senior year, we decided to do a very small 2-city tour. So we ended up in, what is it? It's in North Carolina, Asheville, North. Yeah. I had never been there before. I now say that like I love Asheville, even just having been there for like the 2 days that we were there. So we did a show in Asheville, North Carolina, and a show in Richmond. And while we were down in Asheville, the show that we were doing was at a bar on it was either a Friday or Saturday night. So it was like pretty poppin', people were out and about, and we were playing our set. And the thing that I like about bar sets or sets where you're kind of acting more as the background is that you'll get people who come up who'll dance, in your space and will clap for you. But then there's also less pressure because you also know you're kind of in the background, right? And so you don't have to worry about people all eyes being on you at all time. And so we play a couple of songs and we're having a great time, and the energy is high. And we have a cover that we do of the song "Take Me to Church" by Hosier.
Okay, yeah. Pretty famous song. Pretty
famous song. And so we start playing it. We're getting through the verse. People take notice because I feel like whenever popular covers get played, people are like, oh, okay, yeah, I like this song. Let me sing along. And so we head in to the chorus, "Take me to church." And our keyboardist completely changes the key, and it shifts down more than it should have. And so we're all kind of like, wait, what? So she's playing, I have a vantage point of everyone. I'm able to kind of look around, and we all just kind of give each other this knowing glance of we're just going to run with it. And so all of us, I guess it was easy for our drummer, because drums, you don't have to tune differently. But we all shifted in real time to match. So I shifted my vocals to the key that she was playing in. The guitarist shifted, bassist shifted. And then we were all kind of okay, so what's going to happen when we get back to the second verse? And when we got back to the second verse, we shifted back up. And so at this point, everybody in the bar is is this intentional? Is this their take on the song? There's some eyebrows raised, but again, we did really good within each key, even though it wasn't technically correct. We made it through the song. And again, I think that it's just very demonstrative of this idea of sometimes you have to pivot, and in real time doesn't mean you have to stop a song, doesn't mean that you get upset. None of us were upset at all. And we look back, the keyboardist, she feels a little bit embarrassed about it, but we all look back on that memory fondly of just we came together, and we could have, again, gotten upset, but instead we just did what we needed to in that moment. And so interesting story there. And I guess the side story with one of our other songs that we played that night, I believe it was an original love song. And while we were playing it, there was a couple that got up and danced, like started slow dancing with each other. And this was one of the first experiences that I had where I really saw what music could do in terms of having like a deep impact of like getting into people and making them feel a way and wanting to express that with other people around them. And they came up to us afterward and were like, yeah, we were celebrating like our like 15th wedding anniversary, and you really like y'all made it very like extra special. And I think that I have like as like a core memory of really solidifying why I love music. And that is just like the idea of how connected people can become through music, not only to you, but to each other. And to just be able to like bear witness to that in real time was really special.
That's great. In the same gig, you had the cautionary and you had the highlight.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think that's a perfect note to end on, Kristen. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
You as well. Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. And once again, it's KristenMerrittMusic.com. Look for the spelling in the show notes. And best of luck to you with promoting and keeping on your musical path.
Thank you so much. Again, thank you for having me. And I hope everyone listening has a wonderful day.